Welcome to worship with Eliot Unitarian Chapel. Wherever you are tuning in from, near or far, we're so glad you're here. I am Eliot's lead minister, the Reverend Barbara Gadon, and I hope that this is a service that nurtures your spirit. If you are new to Eliot Chapel, we are an intentional community that welcomes all races, genders, and all sexual orientations. We welcome people of all creeds and beliefs, all economic circumstances, and all types of families. Our vision is to create a just world through vibrant, beloved community. If you would like to connect with us and learn more about our congregation, please look for information at the end of the service. Welcome to Eliot Chapel.
In Unitarian Universalism, we light a chalice to symbolize that we are entering sacred space and that we're preparing our hearts and our spirits to give and receive the blessing of beloved community. If you have your chalice or your candle with you, I invite you to light yours with mine. We light this chalice in memory of the courage of those who have struggled for freedom, for the persistence of those who have struggled for justice, and the love of those who've built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope. We are a beloved community that gathers in faith, not faith in any one religion or one God or any one way. We gather in faith of the power of diversity, the power of love, and the hope of a world transformed by our care. We gather in faith in ourselves and those around us, not a faith that requires perfection or rightness in one another, rather a faith that in our shared imperfection, that we may learn to stumble and fall together, faith that we will help one another to rise and to try again and again. We are Unitarian Universalists.
To peak it flashes, it while truth flares as the day star within their glowing eyes, and other eyes beholding are kindled from that flame, and dawn becomes the morning when prophets love proclaim. The soul has lifted moments above the drift of days, when life's great meaning breaketh in sunrise on our ways. Behold the radiant token of faith above all fear. Night shall release its splendor, that morning shall appear.
Our story today is with Frog and Toad. It's called The Garden. Frog was in his garden, and Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice, but it was hard work." "I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Here are some flower seeds," said Frog. "Plant them in the ground, and soon you will have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. "Quite soon," said Frog. Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds. "Now, seeds," said Toad, "start growing." Toad walked up and down a few times, but the seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head close to the ground, and he said loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing." And Toad looked at the ground again, but the seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground, and he shouted, "Now, seeds, start growing." Do you think that worked? Frog came running up the path. "What is all this noise?" he said. "My seeds will not grow," said Toad. "You are shouting too much," said Frog. "Those poor seeds, they're afraid to grow." "My seeds are afraid to grow?" said Toad. "Of course," said Frog. "Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. And soon your seeds will start to grow." That night, Toad looked out of his window. "Drat," said Toad. "My seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark." Toad went into his garden with some candles. "I will read the seeds a story," he said. "Then they will not be afraid." Toad read his seeds a long story. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not start to grow. "What shall I do?" cried Toad. "These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world." Then Toad felt very tired, and he fell asleep. "Toad, Toad, wake up," said Frog. "Look at your garden." Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground. "At last," shouted Toad, "my seeds have stopped being afraid to grow." "And now you will have a nice garden too," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad, "but you were right, Frog. It was very hard work." The end.
This election will have direct consequences for democracy, for climate justice, for our future, for our children, for health care, for the lives of people who live with disabilities. It is a matter of life and death. And so I want to take these themes, and I'd love for the tech deck to go back to that slide. I want to take these themes of action, risk, courage, and mission, and propose to you that we you the vote Did you hear that? That we you the vote. I want to see you all in your communities make your congregations into voter protection, voter registration, civic engagement, and mobilization centers. Let us show the difference, the power that Unitarian Universalists can make. You know, we already have a reputation as being the people who show up, right? Let's build the reputation that we are the people that show up and bring others to show up.
In November, we will be sharing our Sunday collections with Southside Early Childhood Center, an organization that Eliot Chapel has long supported. In 1885, 15 courageous Unitarian women took a stand for the most impoverished children in St. Louis. These women founded a day nursery with a mission to prevent pauperism by assisting breadwinners with young children on their hands to earn an honest living. Southside Day Nursery, as it was known then, welcomed children of every race, ethnicity, and income level. 1885. Over the decades, Southside has grown and its mission has expanded. Today, the mission is to nurture, educate, and inspire children and families in diverse, inclusive environments, promoting healthy development and a strong foundation for success. Their vision is that children develop a lifelong love of learning, flourish within a supportive family environment, and contribute positively to their communities. Children can enter as early as 6 months old and graduate when they begin regular school kindergarten. Southside can serve up to 140 children each day, We all know the value of an early childhood education. Southside is doing an outstanding job of providing it for children that really need it. Their work gives children coming from difficult situations a great chance for success. And as you know, all organizations across the board, every organization that does good in our community is hurting a little bit right now because of the virus. Please do make a generous contribution and keep this long-standing, wonderful program for the children of the St. Louis area going and strong. We are grateful for your contributions. I invite you now into a time of prayer and meditation. If you wish to, you may plant your feet flat on the floor, straighten your spine, close your eyes, and follow your breath. And hear these words that have emerged from our community. Wednesday night, we held a vigil for everyone in our community who was waiting and worrying about the election and our country. We offered a prayer for our country, and so this is our collective blessing. The spirit of life and love, we seek at this time healing, reconciliation, understanding, and hope. Great Spirit, may we earnestly seek with our hearts, minds, and our lives compassion, justice, and healing for the divine. We pray and we work for caring, for unity, and for democracy. May all these come to pass, and may we be a part of making them so. Amen.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out,
beginning of Election Day was sweet, wasn't it? It thrilled my heart to know how many of us were out doing the work to help people vote. And we were told, as we were being trained, a lot of us, that polling places in majority Black neighborhoods could be vulnerable to potential violence and might need some support. So some of us chose North City or North County to volunteer. And like some of you, I was a poll monitor. I took the 4 to 7 p.m. shift at Newstead Avenue Missionary Baptist Church in Cote Brilliant in the city. Now, I felt some fear going in, my long-term conditioning, I suppose. I drove up streets with boarded up homes, and the church parking lot was empty, and the building looked closed up and dark. But as I rounded the corner, I found a party. That's the only way I can describe it. There were people laughing and teasing each other, handing out sample ballots, handing out literature, respectfully 25 feet away. But it was a party. And Action St. Louis showed up with subs and chips for all the volunteers and the voters. Mothers came in, taking their small children by the hand after what I imagined was a long day at work. Young adults came in wearing glitter masks and high-heeled shoes. Why not dress up for voting? It's an occasion, right? My hands down favorite was meeting a woman named Carol, who had been at this polling place since 6 that morning, 6 a.m., handing out sample ballots. And seeing Carol in action, I decided that she was the ambassador of voting joy. She greeted everybody as if she knew them. So glad you came, welcome. She had put several blankets in her car, and when it started to get cold, she insisted that I take one. And anytime I felt like quitting because, well, there weren't that many people and it was getting cold, I just couldn't imagine leaving her. And election night, for many of us, became challenging. For everyone, no matter who your candidate is, despite the predictions of a close race, for some reason, I had convinced myself that it just wasn't going to be that hard. I had no idea I would feel so raw and frightened. And so began the middle of this election day. As the old Greg Brown song says, it's been Tuesday all week, and it's Tuesday again. As I am speaking to you, recording this service on Friday morning, November 6th, it's Tuesday again, and we still don't know the outcome. For the past few days, I have been staring at the Associated Press election map and hitting refresh every few minutes. Sometimes I switch over to the New York Times election map just to make sure I haven't missed anything. I don't recommend this as a spiritual discipline. It does not bring serenity. It does not spark joy. We are not wired very well for the middle of things. Now, we love beginnings. If you're a dancer, your favorite numbers are what? 5, 6, 7, 8, and your body gets ready and you know you're going to start dancing. If you run track, you know how it feels to have your feet in the starting blocks, your rest of you hunched forward, and you're waiting for the gun to go off and the race to begin. There's the first day of school, the first day of your new job, the first time that one special person says, I love you. Beginnings are sweet. Endings can be pretty good, depending on how something ends, of course. Your kids' basketball team taking the state championship, that's pretty good. You retire and there's a big dinner with people celebrating your career. And even memorial services celebrating your loved one and their contribution to the world are sweet. But when things don't go very well, you lose the game, a job ends, a marriage ends. Those are hard. But to some degree, they are preferable to the middle. At least you kind of know what to do. Your body sort of relaxes, releases something in it that you had been holding on to. The struggle has ended. You can rest, you can grieve. It's a relief, right? We do not like the middle. We have no idea what to do with ourselves in the middle. Especially when, like a person's waistline during the pandemic, the middle grows and grows and grows. When you're truly in a middle place, and it could go any direction, it's hard to see everything that's in front of you, including the hope. Hope at this point is really all you've got, and it's a muscular kind of hope, I say, one that you have to work at a time, might I add, when we are already tired. When you're truly in the middle, it seems, rather than waiting for what you hope for, it seems easier to give up, to get angry, and even despair than to keep waiting. Which is part of what I think we're seeing in the movement to control the vote. It's horrifying to see armed mobs standing outside election centers, chanting to stop the count or count the vote, depending where you are. It's alarming to learn about groups like Stop the Steal on Facebook, which spread so much information about supposed voter fraud and which incited violence. They managed to organize several groups across the country to harass vote counters in places where the race was close. Now, this group was shut down within 22 hours, I'm thankful to say. But before it was shut down, they managed to collect 350,000 members. And I would tell you that I don't understand it, except that I do. I kind of do. When I thought of 4 more years of children in cages at the border, 230,000 people dead from the virus with no national strategy to defeat it, discrediting and discarding public health advisors, when I thought about discrediting journalists and scientists, when I thought about the public embrace of hate groups and so much more, I just felt like it couldn't be. I couldn't stand it. And I felt it, a blinding rage. And had I stayed there and had someone in authority, someone I trusted, told me that blinding rage I was feeling was reality and stoked it, I don't know what I would have done. It's a place, when you get there, it's a place in your head that obliterates hope. It obliterates your actual field of vision. And everybody, I am convinced, every one of us has that place. It is shocking for many of us to see what's been going on this week. It's still a shock. I was talking to you about it last week. I said, well, all of these things that we were expecting to happen, they're happening. And I was caught off guard. It's still a shock. And there's likely to be more of the same, I'm sad to say. We look at the division between us that's coming up into sharp focus right now. And what we are seeing is not just the tenacious division between us as a people, but we are also seeing tenacious forces of racism and economic injustice at play. This division is not just about some people believe A and other people believe B. And if we could just sort of find some kind of A.5 maybe in the middle, that we'd be okay. No, this is a division about power, about race, and about money. It's not new. it's not a coincidence that the protests in the cities where the race is close are, for the most part, Black majority cities, and the people showing up in the mobs are white. It's not an accident. The racism behind voter suppression and intimidation is ancient, even in our young country, and it is newly discouraging. It's not new, but it's newly discouraging. When will it ever end? All our lives, though, we are faced with difficult moments when it is easier to give up than to still have hope. I know something about this. Now, I try not to play the transplant card too often, but bear with me here. I think it pertains. There are so many places on that journey that have been uncertain or discouraging for me. I'll pick one. June of 2019. I was transplanted 4 months earlier, but my airways, they had discovered, my airways were very narrow, tight, and not a lot was coming through them. So we were undergoing a series of procedures to widen them. This is a procedure called a bronchoscopy. And a bronchoscopy means that they put a scope down your throat and insert a tiny balloon in one or two airways to stretch them for about half an hour. Any more would do some damage. So they do these in increments. Full anesthesia, thank the Lord. And from prep to recovery, it takes a whole day. And in June of 2019, we had done this procedure, these bronchoscopies, we had done them 15 times. I was in for my checkup at that point with one of the doctors on rotation, and he told me, looking at my numbers, matter-of-factly, that it just didn't seem to be working. They would keep doing it as long as it was still helping, giving me some relief, but the airways were not widening in place the way they had hoped, and the window was closing. I sat in his office. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to go home until somebody gave me something else, until somebody gave me different information. And I'm willing to bet that something like this has happened to many of you. What do you do? Well, the nurse who had been with us in that visit felt bad for me. She could tell I wasn't hearing half of what he was saying to me. I took a pretty bleak outlook on all of this. So she asked one of the other doctors to call me and talk to me. This is someone who, when I was still on the ventilator, right after the surgery, spoke to me about ministry and preaching sermons. Somebody, in other words, who didn't just see this old lady in a hospital gown on a ventilator, but a minister, a person. And he just explained a few things. He didn't do all that much. He just explained a few things. And then he said, don't ever give up. A few days later, I met a woman named Beverly, a Black woman who'd been transplanted 4 years earlier and now was wearing a tracheotomy. She touches her finger to it in order to speak. Beverly would love to have a bronchoscopy, and she can't. And she is not giving up. So I didn't either. And it's a good thing. The next procedure showed marked improvement, as did the one after that, and the one after that, and they started spacing them farther and farther apart, and now I don't need them at all. But when you're in the middle place, there's so much that you can't see. We have been in this middle for so long. not just waiting for the results of this election, but waiting for the liberation of our people, of all Americans. And it's hard to see when and how it will end. But if you want to see something else, if you want to look at something else, I invite you to look elsewhere. It is no accident that in my story, the people who have given me hope, by and large, are Black women, people who've had the strongest headwinds in life. Carol, the volunteer that I met, adopted her sister's 5 children in addition to her own. Beverly, my fellow lung transplantee, Beverly, she's the spark plug for lung transplants and their families in St. Louis. If you've been transplanted here, chances are good that you know Beverly. And now look at Stacey Abrams. You can look at all of the tricks and the mobs and all of the things going on. And you could also look at Stacey Abrams organizing Black voters in Georgia. If you want to see some hope, fix your eyes on the people who should be exhausted, who I'm sure are, who have had a longer wait than any of us could imagine. Look at the Black women and hope. If nothing else, imagine looking at them and deciding the food's not worth the effort anymore. I dare you to do it. If we are seeing now in our lifetimes the embodiment of the Aboriginal saying, if you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. That, my friends, is the invitation that is before us right now, tired as we are, separate as we are. That is what is being extended to us. No matter who wins this election or any in the future, we have so much to do. Take a rest, dear friends, but not for long. Battered and bruised, we will keep going, and I am so happy to be here to do it with you. Amen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Woyaya, 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 we are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Woyaya, 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 woyaya.
So before we end our service, we wanted to say something about the end to all this waiting that we've been doing for the past few days, or past few months, should we say. Now, as you know, we record and assemble our service a few days in advance. And that's about all it takes these days for the world to look and feel entirely different. This election marks the end of a painful and difficult 4 years for so many Americans. And for that, we are grateful. Many of us are celebrating now. And we know that some are not. We know that we are just as divided as we were a few days ago. We have the same fight for equal rights that we did a few days ago, although I believe that it might have become a bit easier. We leave you with a recording of the great Frank Sinatra. This might look a little corny, but it's hopeful. It's still the America that can be if we work for it. Sarah Price will tell you more about it.
The song that you're about to hear, The House I Live In, is from a film by the same name, written and produced in 1945. The film was made to help combat anti-Semitism and racial prejudice at the end of World War II. It received an honorary Academy Award and a special Golden Globe Award in 1946. The film has since been preserved in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. It has been set aside as being culturally and historically significant. In the film, the part that precedes the song that we're about to hear, Frank Sinatra, playing himself, takes a break from a recording session and steps outside, where he finds a group of boys bullying one boy, and he intervenes. He finds out that the reason these boys are bullying this boy is because he is Jewish. Frank Sinatra then makes a short speech and engages with the boys and points out that we are all Americans, regardless of race, regardless of religion, and regardless of creed. And he makes a point that the boys then take to heart as they watch him sing this song, and they are moved. The song is originally from a musical revue, Let Freedom Sing, which opened on Broadway in 1942. The song was then taken and covered by a number of very significant singers, not least of which being Paul Robeson, who was a civil rights activist and a singer, and he was actually blacklisted during the McCarthy years for being a suspected communist. Mahalia Jackson, the very famous gospel singer, Sam Cooke, Josh White, others have covered this song. This has been a song that was featured in the post-Motown album, This Is America by Kim Weston. Sinatra sang it throughout his career. It was performed during a state dinner at the White House. It has been performed at inaugural ceremonies, and it has been performed at the ceremony marking the centenary of the Statue of Liberty.
What is America to me? A name, a map, or a flag I see, a certain word, democracy. What is America to me? A house I live in, a plot of earth, a street, the grocer and the butcher, and the people that I meet, the children in the playground, the faces that I see, all races and religions, that's America to me. The place I work in, the worker at my side, the little town or city where my people lived and died, the howdy and the handshake, the air of feeling free, and the right to speak my mind out, that's America to me. The things I see about me, the big things and the small, the little corner newsstand and the house a mile tall, the wedding and the churchyard, the laughter and the tears, the dream that's been a growing, for 150 years. The town I live in, the street, the house, the room, the pavement of the city, or a garden all in bloom, the church, the school, the clubhouse, the million lights I see, but especially the people. That's America to me.
So long, men.
So long.